Are you in Oregon?
I'm in Oregon right now. Yeah.
Wow, you can't tell because I don't see any Trailblazers swag.
No, I would not do that. I'm loyal. I'm a loyal fan.
All right,
I
fair.
did
As
get
long
it.
as
I got a Damian Lillard jersey just because it has the Oregon on it, and he's one of my favorite players out there. I'm not leaving this fan base, but I got
right,
the jersey just because it's cool.
that's completely acceptable. Dame Lillard is the man. I have the shoes back there are up there. Those are the Dame zones that he wore in a game. Not actually, he
Wow.
didn't wear those ones, but they're 10 pairs that were made for promotional purposes for Game of Zones. So Dame is cool with me. He's like definitely a guy that is universally loved, whether or not your Sixers fans can love Dame too. And he might be a Sixer. You never know. But
I
we
hope
could we could
so.
talk about it on the pod.
We can. We can. All right, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of I Don't Know It, and I'm really excited to introduce this guest we have today. He's an incredibly talented showmaker and creator, a huge sports fan. He's the creator of the widely loved Bleacher Report series Game of Zones, as well as working on numerous other shows, including The Champions, Sports Gods, Sports Friends, Gridiron Heights, and so much more. He's a diehard Philly sports fan and a member of the greater Shast family. Adam,
Mm-hmm.
thank you so
Mm-hmm.
much for joining me.
Oh, thank you for having me, cousin. Uh,
Never cousin,
and
never
also got to
cousin.
give a shout out to Craig Malamut, my brother, who is the co-creator of Game of Zones. As much as I like to act like it's just me, there is another.
As much everything I said to Craig as well.
Nah, let's not get crazy.
All right, that was too much. That was too much. Thank you for joining me. And I know you're
Mm.
used to talking on this West Coast time because you've been doing some pitches. I don't know how much
Mhm.
you can say or not say, but what are you working on right now and how is that process going?
So I can't say very much about it at all. What I can say is that we are working on something that is, a cartoon that we wanted to make outside of sports for a long time, Greg and I. And we spent the last year developing it, and we just did some pitches and with some big places, and we'll see what happens. We've heard some feedback. I can't get into anything, but we'll see what happens. Check the trades, folks.
Check the trades. Well,
Hopefully.
you can promise that whenever this show is official, it'll be first be announced here, right? You'll let me know before anyone.
Oh yeah. Listen. I'll see what I can do. See what I can do.
That's a
I got media people. They're calling me left and right. They gotta know what the hot Malamut news is. But
you got
but
calls on all
I
your phones.
but if I do give you that information first, then you have to change the name of the podcast to I Do Noah.
That's true. It'll be a whole brand change. We'll get there when we get there, but I'm
Okay.
excited. I could ask you a million questions about Game of Zones, but I'll try to keep it to a few. First of all, I'm sure you've explained this a bunch. How did you and Craig, how did this all come about? This cartoon basketball parody of a old time intense violent show to go
Mm,
on this Bleacher Report app and YouTube. How did that all was it overnight? Was there a moment? Kind of just walk me through how that process came about.
Sure, yeah. So it's a long process of it's sort of like there's a quote I'm going to butcher from Picasso, and this lady was I'm going to butcher this whole story, but I'm going to start with this place. So this lady was like wanted to buy a Picasso drawing, and it was like 40 mil. It was like some really expensive, like $40,000, something like that, or 400,000, just a little sketch. And she's like, "How are you going to charge me this much? You just did this." He's like, "Lady, I have this is taking my whole life to be able to make this sketch because he trained his whole life. And in many ways, am I comparing us Game of Zones to Picasso? Yes, I am.
You
Same
should.
stuff. Um, no, but what I mean is like there's a long story about how we got how that came about. That involves like Craig and I drawing when we were kids and doing voices at the table, making people laugh, getting suspended from my high school. I'd kicked off my high school newspaper because I drew inappropriate drawings. There's many things that went into the path towards doing doing silly cartoons and silly cartoons about sports, listening to 610 WIP all the time growing up, which is the sports radio and stuff like that. Um, but um, but the shorter story for Game of Zones is that I taught myself how to animate. I was doing stuff in LA. I was producing reality shows and on game shows and stuff like that. And at the same time, I was teaching myself how to animate and doing some animated stuff. And I did this one cartoon that was about Chase Utley and Ryan Howard called Baseball Friends, and they're just literally talking about how much they love the feeling of hitting home runs, and it was like super vulnerable. And that got some traction. A Philly blog picks it up. That turned into a whole series on Yahoo Screen called Sports Friends. That lasted for 2 seasons until Yahoo who moved away from all their short form stuff and moved towards like community and long form stuff. Um, and and then a guy at Bleacher Report had seen our Sports Friends cartoons and some other stuff, and he was interested in working with us in some way. And at the time, Craig midway through Sports Friends had joined me, working with me, and we were doing it together. And he kind of got caught up to speed on everything, and he wanted to work with us. We had been watching Game of Thrones. We were really into it, and we wanted to do something like a spoof of that in some way. And so we pitched him on a spoof of Game of Thrones and maybe the NFL, maybe the NBA. And he was like, "Let's do the NBA," because Bleacher Report was just acquired by Turner and they had the rights to the NBA. So we made the first episode of a Game of Thrones NBA mashup and said, "Who knows who's going to watch this?" A lot of people watched it. It went like totally viral. The first episode, we were kind of freaking out. It's really exciting. And then Bleacher Report was like, "Hey, can you do another one of these?" And I was like, "No, we used all the jokes. There's no more jokes. We can't do like we like no." And then Craig's like, "We can." And I'm like, "All right, fine, let's just do it." So we scraped together whatever last jokes we could make, and we gave him the other next Game of Zones that went crazy viral again. And we said, "Okay, I think we made all the Game of Thrones NBA mashups we can do." And that's when Bleacher Report was like, "Would you guys be interested in coming in house and doing these cartoons?" And I was like, "Oh boy, I don't know if we can make how many more jokes are left in this mashup, but that sounds like kind of fun." So we moved to San Francisco, started doing them in house, and somehow 7 seasons later, the show evolved into its own universe and kind of became its own thing. So yeah, that's the long version of kind of how it happened.
I mean that's incredible. It's great to see what it's become. I'm a huge fan of the show. Obviously, thousands, millions of people are. How do you kind of manage? And you said you were kicked off your high school newspaper for being inappropriate. How do you manage finding that kind of comedic level and adding that bit of personality and comedy and sometimes maybe a little dark or a little raunchy, whatever it is, but also in this sports centric type show that's on a sports platform that's not an Adult Swim or a Cartoon Network?
Yeah, I think it's always, it's interesting. It's always like a weird analogy here or comparison is like I remember listening to Sam Hinkie talking to Pablo Torre about Daryl Morey and saying that Daryl is going to be great because he makes a ton of like micro decisions that are like it will affect the team in positive ways, and like that's what makes something good or bad. And I think a lot of it, there's no overall rule or anything like that. It's just a bunch of micro decisions that guide us. So for example, we see something going on in the NBA, we talk about it, we laugh at something, we say, "Oh, that's really funny." Then it's like like is that appropriate? Is that inappropriate? Like, does that work? Can we make it appropriate? And then it's like, yeah, okay, I think we need to do. What if we did it this way? And it's like becomes shaped by like throughout the process, we're always shaping it with decisions that are like, is this appropriate? Will people think this is funny? Does this make sense? Is this accurate? And so there's no real I think the process is really just it's like tumbling a stone. There's like an analogy I think that like Steve Jobs used at one point, and I being incredibly pretentious to compare Game of Zones to like Picasso and Steve Jobs and Daryl Morey and stuff like that, but I think I like to think in terms of this stuff. And I also think these tidbits are interesting and helpful. But like, we talked about the creative process being a tumbling stone. It's a lot of friction, and and that friction includes like Craig and I fighting all the time, and all these things, and us being stressed out and working weekends. But you tumble the stone, and all of a sudden you get like this really pretty little thing with that looks like it's nice, but it's just constant tumbling. And so even I don't know if this exactly answers your question, but it's really just a lot of you know finding all the balances for everything, like knowing what the audience is, knowing what's appropriate for Bleacher Report, knowing what's not too offensive, particularly for sensitive people in the NBA who I always feel bad about making fun of a player because like these are real people. And so we always are making those decisions based on everything based on the feeling of what feels like it's the right level, and then how good can we make it within those boundaries.
Right, and that was my next question. Have you ever had any jokes or episodes in particular that you got negative feedback specifically from a player or a team or anyone in that sphere?
Um, Never. It's only things. So everything's been really positive, and we're always impressed. And part of the reason we needed to wrap up the show after all this time was like we just like developed too many relationships with people in the NBA, and they're all super cool. Um, but we did have. I like to think that T.J. Warren subtweeted us once after we did the Sun Kings episode, and like called him a ball hog or something like that. Uh, he tweeted um, he's like something about the haters, something like that. And I like to think that was a Game of Zones reference, even though I'm not sure. And the other thing was that this was like a story that I don't know if I can talk about it. It's unclear, but I already accidentally said it on a podcast,
Might as
and
well
so
go again.
I'm gonna be vague about it. But it's like basically a certain owner of the New York Knicks wasn't thrilled with his portrayal and complained to some powerful people, but nothing really came of it.
So you can't ever go to the city of New York again? Is that what?
Yeah, banned from all of New York.
They got eyes on you.
That's why I moved to New Jersey. Yeah.
Right. There's the Malamut. Don't let him in.
Right. Yeah. It's honestly, it'd be an amazing honor to be banned from the Garden. I'm not saying that it was, that particular owner, but
right. We can't speculate here.
Yeah, we don't want to speculate.
Something like going on. Were there any? What were the most memorable reactions? I guess on the other way, the most positive. Someone who really loved the way they're portrayed, or was such a huge fan, and they had to come up and tell you.
Well, for me, the big deal, one big deal is like Embiid. When we did the process episode, he was like, "This is amazing. This is the best thing ever." That was awesome because it's Joel Embiid, and you happen to be a big fan of his. Lonzo Ball, when he tweeted out his episode, that was amazing. God, there's so many cool examples. We took Mark Cuban to town for like in one thing because like he had like got angry at Bleacher Report for making a tweet that said Dirk forever, and it was like him airballing, and like it was like not in good taste, but he like got super sensitive about it. So we made the episode where he's like threatening Nerlens Noel, and we thought he would hate it, but he like tweeted it out and he liked it. So like a ton of positive reactions like that. I'm trying to think of like who the biggest ones are. I to me like the most memorable is Joel Embiid. I think so. And like, it's always fun to hear like randomly you hear like, oh, Mike D'Antoni's a huge fan. Like Howard Beck, who the NBA writer who used to be at Bleacher Report, when he was there would always report back when he was talking to someone in the league that they're a huge fan of the show and stuff like that. But it got to the point where almost everybody in the NBA seemed to know about it. One thing was cool was like we heard on Danny Green's podcast that Kawhi had seen his episode. That was pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
So like there's always and it never gets old. Like anytime we hear that anyone likes it like that, we just like a celebrity or the players who's in it saw it, like we always freak out. Like it's like little kids. It's super exciting. And then nothing for overall will top like going on and they would always put the episodes on Inside the NBA, and like Charles Barkley to me is like my God. Like he is just the coolest dude ever, and my favorite like player / talent. And so the fact that they liked it, and Charles Barkley's like, we'd hear a story about, I'm sorry I'm going on for a long time about this, but like
no, it's fine.
One time at like Inside the NBA, like Tom Thibodeau was there, and like Barkley cornered him, was like, yo, did you see the Game of Zones with Jimmy Butler with the urine? And he was like, "Yeah, I saw it." He said, "Oh my god, that was so funny." Actually, I should do it in my Charles Barkley voice, but man, did you see that Game of Thrones? Man, that was hilarious, man. So I'd say like that was a pretty big thrill to hear that story secondhand.
That's incredible. And I was going to ask you, I know you do so much on the show, and I'm sure you do a lot of voices. What are some of your favorite voices to do?
Hmm. So I like the deep, scary voices, like in Father of Balls, which is like the LeVar Ball voice. Like, yes, Alonso, we will, like the really big dark voices, and then we lower them. That's always fun to do, dark voices like that, scary villainous voices. But then I like, and of course, there's James Harden, who is kind of originally based on Oberyn, from a prince from Dorne, but then sort of devolved into Triumph the Insult Dog for some reason. Uh, yeah, who else do I do? I like to do a lot of guys like this. But I'm not sure which guys talk like this off the top of my head. Who else do I do? Of course the Van Gundys. Well, there's Stan. You know, he's more Scottish. That's my brother Jeff. And then there's Jeff, who's like, Stan, who's a little higher pitched and sort of Irish. That's fun. Um, who else do I do? I'm trying to think. I like doing anything that's like Stannis Baratheon. It's the true king of the north, the Onion Knight guy. Whenever we get a character that talks like this guy, I like to the Onion Knight, the true Stannis Baratheon, the true king of the north. I have to keep doing that. So I'm like my anchor for that voice. I can't remember which characters talk like him. But that Doc Rivers is fun. Like, you're gonna guard. He's kind of got one of those low raspy voices. Yeah. Any particular? I'm trying to think if there's anything I'm forgetting that Hinky's got sort of that nerd voice, a little cliche there, but something like that. Yeah. I'm sure that I'm gonna think of Jimmy Butler. When he's like, oh yeah, that's sort of like Gin Alley voice. That's based on a character.
Yeah, he's got
I forget
that
his
like
name.
that Gin Alley, that kind of like
Yeah.
lower. Yeah.
I was a legend in Gin Alley. That's sort of Jimmy Butler's voice, and we lower it a little bit. So a lot of fun voices.
I mean, that fits his character because, Jimmy Butler works hard. I know he works hard to get where he's at. So it's
yes, yes. He Jimmy Butler works hard, sometimes inefficiently. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, the one thing a complaint I have is doing a lot of the raspy voices hurts my throat sometimes after a while, and then we have to. So sometimes when we're recording, we do those last.
You got to maybe take some breaks, you record a little bit and get some water, maybe do it another
Yeah.
day.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes. So we try not to. We try to power through it.
Were there any episodes of Game of Zones or any other series that you thought like, this is hilarious, this is amazing, this is great, that didn't get the response that you were expected it to get?
Yeah. So I thought it was hilarious when we sent Brad Stevens back in, or forgot Frozen in Time by the Time Lord, and then like Lucky, we did the whole like long slow death of Lucky, because like he is the legend has it with him is that he's like has a blood oath that like he always has to perform during timeouts. So when they called this timeout, when they had this like epic 30-year timeout, he had to keep performing, and then he eventually got too tired and then passed away. The 2 minutes that Brad Stevens spent like explaining the long, complicated death of Lucky the mascot, I thought would be a laugh riot, but people didn't really care.
Well, they're uncultured. They don't get it.
Exactly. Exactly.
What was more beneficial for you getting to Game of Zones and Bleacher Report and all the success you have now? Interning with NFL Network, at Fox Reality Channel, or at the innovative site MySpace?
Ooh, good question. Wait, so what was most influential? So you said NFL Films internship, which I did. When I was there, I once told Donovan McNabb where he could poop, and I also said,
"Is that your set job?"
I was the studio and live events intern. So like I was there for a lot. I met tons of. I remember watching Tony Saragusa throw candy on my head once, and some weird random stuff there. And at one time, Cameron was supposed to be on one of the shows, the rapper, and he showed up 4 hours late, and then he like baked the shit out of the like green room, and then like they're like, "Yo, Adam, you got to go clear that out. Like you can't be smelling weed like that." So like I had to like air out Cameron's room. That was definitely very influential. And then Fox Reality, woo, that was a great time. That was very formative. I was an assistant. That actually taught me about pitching and how to pitch, and I met a ton of. It also taught me even more how to be calm in front of celebrities because I was the assistant who had to like let all these people pitching reality shows up, like William Shatner and Joan Rivers, and like it was just
Wow.
crazy names. And I would always be the person who like said, "Hey, come on, I'll take you up," and that helped me be calm
Bring him the
around.
lemon water and everything.
Yep, you know it. Uh, and then MySpace. Oh, MySpace was definitely influential because I didn't like that job, and that was where I'm like, I gotta really get serious with animation. I don't want to do this.
So what did you do at MySpace that you were like, this is not for me?
I was technically a creative producer, which sounds like a good title, except it really means you produce creative. So like it basically be like Fanta wants to do a MySpace page, and like back this is right at the end of MySpace, but like brands were still paying like $1 million for like a MySpace page, and I'd be like the guy who like coordinates making sure like the programmer. I just kind of coordinate that. Like the salesperson sells it, then they say, "Hey, we sold Fanta on this like cool Fanta skinned player that plays cool music that kids think is cool, and it's got all these features." And I have to talk to like the guy who does the code and be like, "Hey, this is what the player is supposed to do," and then I talk to the designer and say, "This is what it's supposed to look like," and then I sit at my desk and plan how I can stop doing this.
Yeah. That's just
But it's not. I mean, listen, it was actually fun because my friends worked there and like we'd hang out, and I got paid and I got benefits, but it was not as creative as it wasn't. I wasn't good at that job because I'm not that organized, and also it was not maximizing my potential.
well, I'm glad your potential was found and it was maxim. Well, I can't say it's maximized yet,
No.
but it's been.
Oh my God, I have so much potential. You have no idea. No, for all we know, I think I feel like Game of Zones might have been our ceiling. We'll see.
Don't say that. This is just the bit. You haven't even begun to peak. This is.
We'll see. I did read that writers on average peak at 41 years old, and I'm 38, so we got 3 good years. 3 good years, but I got to get my good stuff in before I start like doing corny jokes because my mom, she makes corny jokes only now, and I know I'm going that trajectory. So I got to get it in now
You
before
got to ride
the
that
jokes get super corny.
that fine line where it's like there's an aspect of corniness, but it's not just a corny joke. Like,
Right. It's corny, but there's corny but cool, and then there's
yeah.
corny and just corny, which is like LeBron.
What? You think
LeBron,
LeBron James is corny?
I think LeBron's a little corny. I think he's kind of like there's a lot of great things about LeBron. Like I'm not a LeBron hater, but he's definitely corny. He's definitely corny,
He's easily
cringy.
top 5 cringiest Twitter personalities in sports.
Just ever overall personality. Like he's just so like for someone to be that good and still like insecure. Like it's just
He's
it's like
somehow cringier than Tom Brady is on social media.
oh yeah. No, Tom Brady is like a killer. Like he is like he's got that like Kobe MJ gene. But LeBron is like a goofball and insecure and he just like he's the most amazing like player. And he's like a great like leader in a lot of ways, but he's just so cringy. He's just a cringy guy. And some people just are. He's just corny. So
And,
and
and I guess that happens from, I don't know, being in that kind of media basketball spotlight since you were like 14.
I don't know. I mean, a
I,
lot of guys have that are in that situation. I feel not a lot of guys, but like it doesn't mean you get like cringy, like corny, like Bieber. He's been in the spotlight since he was a kid, and like I wouldn't say. I mean, he's definitely cringy in some ways, but like he's not corny. Or maybe he is. I don't know, but it's not the same. It's not the same.
I know what you mean.
And there's a lot of I'm trying to think of the equivalent athletes, but like guys like Kobe was in high school killing it and stuff like that. Like he definitely had a lot of attention, and he always he was kind of an asshole, but like he was cool in my opinion. I know that stuff's arbitrary, but like he wasn't that cringy. Like he was always like there's a confidence or something that feels real and a security that like he has. Like it just like LeBron just kind of strikes me as like a little bit of an insecure guy. And to be honest, like I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think that like a lot of a lot of the kind of like the MJ types, are can be huge assholes, and I think LeBron is like legitimately a nice guy. So there's a trade-off in person. Like, it's like choose your character, in a
Yeah.
video game, and like there's trade-offs.
When you mention like insecurity, and that makes me think like someone that gets a lot of flack on social media is Kevin Durant. I'm curious as to what do you think? Who do you think he is based off his social media presence? Because
Okay.
it does seem insecure for someone that's one of the
Oh
most
my god,
talented
he's like a
scorers ever.
different. Yeah, he's like an interesting foil to LeBron. Sometimes he can be funny, but mostly like it's like really, in my opinion, like you don't need to do this.
It's
Stop. It
some
looks
like
so petty and so insecure. And it's like you dude, you're amazing, and he could be cool. Like he's like well, he's got that thing. He's got that Tom Brady MJ thing. Like he's kind of a killer like that, but yet he like goes on social media and gets so angry.
it's so
And I
strange. There'll be like a
yeah.
burner account that's like Katie's overrated, and he'll be like,
So it's
you
just
know what,
so
dude, screw
sensitive.
you. It's like
It's
what?
just so sensitive, and like I just find it to be a very unbecoming quality in like a leader or a man or something like that, or a person I should say. Like to me it's like to be able to be secure and confident and do your thing. Like I believe you can respond to haters and when it's appropriate, but like kind of like crawling all over social media and like being all so sensitive. I just find that um it's not a quality that I think is admirable.
I agree, and well, he's still in these playoffs, having an admirable performance so far. So let's talk a little playoffs. I see you got your Sixers shirt on. Both big
Yes.
Sixers fans. We've got 3 of the 4 series now tied up at 2-2 at the moment. Where do you think things are headed? Tell me what you've liked, what's been surprising of these playoffs so far, generically. Then we'll get into the Sixers, but just of the
Right.
other series.
Um, I think. I mean, let's see what's so the fact that the Suns are being this good is surprising because I think there is like a stigma that comes with the Suns, sort of like the Knicks, that you just expect them to be um bad just because of the Suns, and like are they for real, and like they definitely seem like they're for real. So that's been surprising. I think the most overall unique thing about these playoffs, although this has been trending a little bit this way, is just how unpredictable it is. Like I really have no idea what's going to happen. I would have said like I was thinking the Nets might just roll, but I don't. They're playing right now. Let me get a little Nets update. I know that when this comes out, it will already have happened, but
Right.
the score is currently uh oh my god, Milwaukee's killing Brooklyn and Harden's back. So I think that like I would say that like it was a little surprising to me just how much the Nets were walking over Milwaukee, and now it's surprising me that Milwaukee's coming back. I'm also surprised the fact that like I'm sort of surprised and not surprised that like the Sixers are at 2-2 right now. um I'm trying to think what should I be surprised about. What else should I be surprised? What's surprising to you?
Maybe just because I'm a homer, the Sixers' performance has been surprising. I kind of,
Mm.
I saw the Hawks playing as well as they are. I just, after the years and years of watching the Sixers, like fourth quarter performance, I figured would like kind of ramp up a little bit, especially with like the head coach of Doc Rivers, the season Embiid's having. And it still seems like in something like this close game like last night that there's just something missing. And I don't know, the consistency with this team kind of drives me nuts. But again, I'm a homer. That bothers me. I have not been surprised by the Suns. I was very high on the Suns to start the season. I thought it wasn't a fluke how they ended the bubble with their 8-0 record. Monty Williams is one of the smartest head coach hires made in that offseason.
Oh yeah,
2 off seasons ago.
big
Devin
big
Booker's
loss
legit.
for the Sixers. Yeah.
No, they didn't surprise me. I think what surprised me, another team's inconsistency, the Clippers. I have them going to the finals, and I just can't get a read on them.
Yeah, well, that's because like Paul George and Kawhi are like foils for each other. Like they have a lot of similarities, but the big difference is that Kawhi is like amazing in the playoffs and Paul George is not. um
You know
So
what's crazy?
I,
He wasn't always bad in the playoffs. I feel like
but
it's
he never.
recently.
Well, he was like in the East with LeBron when it was just there's no chance, and so it's hard to evaluate that. Like he just ran into a wall that is LeBron.
This is
You
true.
know, I don't know, to be honest. Like I don't follow his exact stats, but I know my sense of him is that like Paul George is gonna blow it in the like. He's just like come playoff time, he's not going to pick up his game and become amazing. He's just gonna like not do enough to. I feels like players need to like reach another level in the playoffs a lot of time, and he just doesn't reach that other level.
But does
Kawhi
he?
does though, and so like that's why I think
So
there's
does
like
he
a little.
need to reach that level? There's someone like Kawhi who pretty much always does.
Well, I don't know. I mean, like it's like does he need? He needs to do it enough so they can win 4 games out of 7 each series. You know, like
True. Math.
so I don't know, but like it's like I would say that like Kawhi, I would say Kawhi can't do it himself, but he did almost do it himself on Toronto. Although like Siakam and Lowry were there, you know. But I think that for that team to push through, like there's got to be enough good Paul George. Doesn't have to be great, but enough good Paul George. Yeah, but I to be honest, I haven't really watched that much of the Clippers. They're kind of like such a I just don't care about the Clippers that much, and so I haven't watched that much of them. So a lot of what I'm saying right now is just classic guy BSing about sports.
Right. Well, yeah, I think they're overrated. They're good. They're bad.
Yeah, yeah.
I've
But
had
I
the
don't know.
Clip
That's my view
I've
of
had the
things.
Clippers just kind of like shoved down my throat. Just I'm on the West Coast time now, and on my
Yeah.
Sixers game I watch like half at work. But the
Right.
Clippers and the Lakers and the Warriors, they're always on when I'm actually like at home and relaxing. So I've had my fill of West Coast teams that I probably would have never
Sure.
really
Yeah.
watched this many.
Yeah, I've been there on the West Coast, and it's definitely watch a lot more of those, those things, and like it's hard to catch a lot of the East Coast games because they kind of start sometimes while you're commuting and whatnot.
Yeah, it's like at 4 o'clock, 4:30.
Yeah, I guess no one commutes anymore though. I guess you do. You commute for work because you're doing news, right?
Yeah, I'm still out and about.
Yeah.
But tell me about Sixers tied up 2-2. How are you feeling going into these next few games?
Well, before this last game, I was feeling great, and now I'm feeling scared because a total momentum shift. And that last game was one of those games that like could be like a total pivot point in the series. I mean, like go be dominant like they were, and on the verge of like basically closing this team out ish. I mean, essentially closing them out. Had they won that game, and then just blowing it. And like, I don't know what's going on with Embiid's health now because that was really weird. He could not move. He looked amazing in the first half, and then the second half, he like couldn't even get up at
It
all.
was
And
the
like,
worst single half performance in playoff history ever.
and it was yeah, and it was very. It wasn't fluky. It was very visible. Like he was visibly gassed or hurt. And I think a lot of it comes down to that. What's really concerning is how poorly the Hawks shot, and we still lost. And I'm just worried that like this gives the Hawks like a new energy, and they're very capable of having a very hot game like they did the first game where they just hit a lot of shots, and the Sixers are gonna have trouble with that. So and there's other concerning things around like other players not stepping up, and like I'm a little concerned about Danny Green's absence because the
I think that's huge.
Sixers aren't that deep, and they have a lot of guys off the bench, but like Danny Green's like a veteran who's very consistent. He's inconsistent sometimes with his shot, but like he's just consistently is Danny Green, and he's consistently a guy that you can trust in there to make smart plays generally and play decent defense. And it's a real kind of crapshoot like with the other guys as to who's going to be hot or cold or off or on. So I'm now very concerned about this series. I could easily see the Hawks just like having a crazy game and just like blowing out the Sixers, and just like this whole thing's turns. But I could also see that the Sixers reimposing themselves. This is the makeup of this team is very different than the Brett Brown Sixers. There's just like this team has been finishing games in a way that like the previous Brett Brown teams used to like, and I love Brett Brown, but like those teams used to just blow it in the end all the
Oh,
time,
all the
and they would
so
blow
many.
leads all the time. This team lets teams back in, but usually, unlike last night, does close it out in my experience. So um, I can't really predict. I don't want to predict too much based on like my pessimism about the Sixers in the playoffs over the last few years because I think this is a different makeup, a different team. So So we'll see. We'll see. I really anything can happen. I know that's not the most interesting opinion, but like I have no idea now what's gonna happen. I could see it going both ways.
Well, I'm gonna force you to choose. So I hope you get your glasses ready because I have a theory
Okay.
that I think people with glasses are they seem smarter.
But
So
regular
whenever I,
glasses or sunglasses?
it doesn't matter.
Because these are not making make me smarter. These are gonna make me cooler.
Either cooler, smarter, whatever. So whenever
No,
I'm making a
cooler.
sports prediction, I throw on some glasses just to seem I've got more education, more authority than I really do. So I want you to join me, and I want two predictions from. Whoa,
All right.
this is okay. This is intense. Two
Yeah.
predictions.
This
How
is
the
future
Sixers.
smart. I'm tapped into the future internet.
Wow. Two predictions. How the Sixers series ends and your finals prediction. Winner and how many games?
Okay, so first, how the Sixers series ends. Oh, Sixers in 6.
Love it. Finals. Two. Which teams? Who's winning? How many games?
The finals are going to be. There's two forces that are pulling at me. One is the wanting to believe in the Sixers, but then I also don't want to say they're going to do something good because then I'll jinx it. But I'm going to say. Oh, now I'm feeling the Bucks. I think it's going to be. Oh God, I don't want to say this, but Bucks
Oh,
defeating the Suns in 6 games.
wrong.
Yeah. Okay, thank God. I don't want to be right.
No,
I don't
yeah.
want to be right, but I'm just the future internet is like when I like think it's this like what you're seeing, what's happening right there, and some people maybe listen to this on audio so they can't see that like I have my super cyber cool glasses on and I have my headphones turned into a internet helmet. And so what happens is there's two competing forces. One is my love for the Sixers and my optimism, but the other competing force is the future internet, which is telling me the actual truth of what happens, which is Bucks over Suns in 6.
You know, that's a much more realistic and modest opinion. I appreciate you for being honest. I have to stick with my prediction that I made a couple months ago. I'm not gonna back down on it. I say Sixers over Clippers in 7. That's my thought.
That would be
Yeah.
exciting.
I'd be a great series. The
That'd be
Clippers have made
exciting.
me more nervous than the Sixers so far in this playoffs.
Yeah. You know what? You know what? I'm getting a new reading from the future internet, and I think it's gonna. I'm agreeing. Okay, Sixers Clippers.
What are they saying?
But I actually am seeing a Sixers in 5. I get over the Clippers right now.
Whoa.
But you know what? No one likes someone who makes multiple predictions, so I got to stick with Bucks over Suns in 6. And I hope I'm wrong because I love the Sixers.
I love them too. I hope you're wrong as well, but we just have to wait and see. Time will tell. Before we
Time will
finish up,
tell.
I just have a couple of rapid fire questions I want to
Do I
get to
still
you.
need my cool glasses for this, or can I do this?
That
with
is up to you.
Regular cool.
You can go
Do I need to
regular
be-
cool.
Okay, so I'm gonna no longer be super cool.
Yeah, you're just
right.
regular cool now. It's just
Yeah.
still a couple levels above me, but I'll get there. I got time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, you will. You'll get there.
Speaking of cool, growing up in cool Cherry Hill,
Very cool. Yeah, one of the coolest places.
who would win in one-on-one basketball games? You or Craig?
Oh boy. So it used to be me because I was the older brother by 6 years, and I would just physically dominate him. Like when I was, especially like when I was 7 and he was 1, he had no chance. I would just absolutely outmuscle him. But
You know, it's
then
easy.
things started to change, and
When he turned 2, right? That's what everything.
he turned 2, and then he got a good post game, and I couldn't stop him. He had a sweet sky hook he developed that would be my. No, at some point, like Craig, like I think it was like when I was in my 20s, and Craig was like 19 or something like that. But like he just was in better shape. He just always has been in better shape than me since then. He's like just in like he's a little taller. And even though my game had like the swag, like I definitely my game looked pretty, but he would just he generally he had a more of a Giannis physique, and I was more of a like a Jared Dudley. And
Is it bad that I was gonna say that, but I didn't want to be mean, so I kept it to myself?
no, that's exactly right. That's I was a Jared. I've been a Jared Dudley, which is a great team guy, but not gonna beat Giannis. So
Mm.
Craig would beat me, would edge me out. We haven't played a long time, but like we used to play at the JCC a little bit, um, and he won the last few matchups. So gotta go, Craig.
All right, we'll go, Craig. I gotta get another game in action.
You got to do this with Craig and then see what he says to all these questions.
True. Do you think he'll be modest, or do you think he'll say, "Oh, me"?
No,
Easily.
yeah, he'll be honest. I think he's an honest guy. He'll admit, he'll say that he would beat me, but overall, I would say your podcast with him will be not as cool and not as funny. It will
So
be good, but not this. It won't be
so you're
this.
saying, you know what, Craig? You can take one-on-one basketball games in the driveway. I'm gonna have the slightly cooler, funnier podcast with our
Yeah,
cousin
yeah.
Alex.
Although Craig is very low key surprising. So like I
Hmm.
throw out a lot of jokes, some hit, some don't. Craig like he waits for his moment and then he picks his shots and then he has a really clever joke that
Mm. So you're
that's
more of
just
like
like
you kind of keep them coming. You're funny. You got them in your pocket at all times. Craig's more if you kind of sit back and listen. He's got the ones that you might not
he's
expect.
smart and calculated and he
Yeah.
will drop like really smart, clever jokes, whereas I'm just like throwing anything at the wall and a lot of them are stupid. So I think that's the difference, yeah.
I'll have to get him on and ask him. Quick personal question,
Oh
because you've
yeah, love
probably
personal questions.
known of me longer than I've known of me.
Yeah.
What do you remember about young me and all the
Very
trash
little.
boys?
Very little. I just remember that you were supposed to be a baby and now you're an adult and it's weird. It was always like
Weird. It's really-
yeah, so for those who want to know how we're related is basically uh your this is my best guess. Your uncle is married to my second cousin. Um Karen.
Yes.
And you guys were your whole family was just always little like rugrats when I was like in a full blown like person and you were just little rugrats and there were a lot of you and I just always was like yeah, like I knew that there were little you guys were rugrats, but then all of a sudden saw you guys recently and you guys were older, and I guess that's what happens.
I've tried my hardest to not let it happen. I tried to stay like in that
Believe
like
me.
17 range, but
Can I give you a pro tip that I learned? A pro tip.
absolutely.
This is for everyone. It ties into LeBron's corniness. Don't get hair surgery. Okay, I did that 2 times. I was started balding at 23. I was freaked out. Okay, because like I was really into looking good, and I got hair surgeries, and they just like look so bad. I got 2 of them, and so now I'm finally shaving my head, buzzing my head, even though there's a big scar in the back. But like I got that scar taken care of. But like, don't anyone listening, not worth it. Don't get hair. I know some people look good with it, but just
Don't
shave it.
get
Just shave it.
hair
LeBron got
surgery.
hair surgery, and it's like it's corny. You should have just shaved it.
Don't be like LeBron. That's
Don't be like you can be like him in many other ways. I think are admirable, but hair surgery. I would, as someone who's gotten 2 of them and now completely shaves his head and wasted his money and has a scar in his head. Don't get hair surgery as you get older. There's other ways to be cool and there's other ways to be confident.
and while we're on the page of giving advice to close it out, what would you say to someone that's trying to get into the creative, the
Mm,
comedy, the
mm.
sports, everything, the illustrative, the field that you're in or the fields that you kind of touch in? Someone that's trying to get in there now, they're working, they've got their jokes, their ideas, their shitty podcasts, whatever it is. What advice would you give them on how to take that next step?
Wow. So I a lot of advice and a lot of tips I would say for different I don't know if they're good it's good advice, but like I had different thoughts on like and it's different per like kind of the thing you're doing. Obviously what we do is very unique and I don't think there's a lot of people trying to do it, but one thing that helps for us is like hating everything you do. Be like because like that's the like I'm so worried that it's going to be bad, and I always think it's bad. We're always chiseling and making it better, and like it's like the obsessiveness and the pride of like I can't make something bad or like average. It has to be good is what is causes a lot of suffering, but it also is the chisel that like whenever like for example, just to give an example here, like I did I did stand up like 3 times in LA, and I hated it because I don't like to be up on stage and all that stuff. But if I saw like one guy in the back who like looked like he wanted to kick my ass, even if everyone was laughing, like that threw me off, and I got a little weird about that. But I kind of apply that in some ways to like the cartoons. I think like you can't make everyone happy, but I try to think about like different audiences and who was watching this and like how they might feel, and I use and anyway, so that along the sorry, that's like a little confusing, but the point is like don't think your shit don't stink. It probably does, especially when you're younger. You're gonna make a lot of bad stuff, and just do it. And like unfortunately for like your generation, like a lot of that stuff stays on the internet or whatever. But like I just think you got to make bad stuff, and you got to kind of like realize it's not good and continue to try and get better, and then and like continue to always look at it like just it's like hate is a bad thing, and like disgust and aversion and these sort of feelings are feelings that like we want to control in our lives. You don't want to feel those things because they're sad, they're bad feelings, but they're if you can control them, then you can use that as a tool to chisel your work and like just watch something. What is making me feel like it's not working? Okay, how do I improve that? Every time you feel like embarrassed or bad about something, how do I improve that? And you may hit a wall and realize, maybe I'm just not that good at this thing, and then that's okay. Try something else. Because one other thing I'll say is the desire to want to be elite and to make something special it's a cool drive, and it allows you to produce things that I think people will find valuable. But it also causes a lot of personal suffering because like there's a need to be at a certain level, and that comes with a lot of sacrifice. Where it's like, a lot of people it's like the other option is like I'm always envious of people who just say, you know what, like I'm gonna be a guy who does glasses. Like I'm gonna just like be an optometrist, and I'm going to go to work 9 to 5 and just check people's eyes, and I'm gonna leave work at 5, and I'm gonna like read a book. Like what Craig and I do like is obsessive. We work on it all the time. Like I can't stop thinking about stuff. I am using all this time to like write, and I always feel like I should be working on something. So I'm not saying that Game of Zones is greatness or anything like this, but like generally what comes with greatness is an obsessive drive that, there's a price that you pay for that. And it's like can be self-loathing, and it's ugly stuff, but that ugliness is the tool. But it's a powerful tool wand, and don't wield it if you don't really want it, like then just become an optometrist.
Right. To all the kids listening at home, your ugliness is your biggest tool.
Yes, something like that. Exactly.
Word of advice from Adam.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on. It was great chatting with you.
Yeah, for
You're
sure.
full of wisdom and jokes and comparisons and voices. I had a blast. I appreciate it. It's great catching up.
Thank you. I'm empty of those things now because I shared them all here. Those are all my jokes and all my wisdoms. So thank you, Noah, for having me. And I look forward to seeing your career blossom. And I also look forward to being one of the earlier guests on what is soon to become the next big podcast. Early-ish.
The next big podcast. Well, if it hits that stage, it's because I had you.
Yes, I agree. Fully agree.